Good morning, Unity Village Chapel. I'm standing here without my eyes closed, so I can see you. I always feel your heart every time I come to lead the meditation, but it's a joy to be here to also share the message of the day. So thank you for having me. Thank you. I was recently in New York. I spent 10 days with Unity of New York. And in the last weekend that I was there, I was staying with some friends at an apartment that's right on the Hudson River. And you could see the Statue of Liberty from there. And I was just sitting on the bench and watching the river and all the activity that goes on. Excuse me. There were people walking their dogs, power walking, running, jogging. People were sitting on the benches meditating or eating or praying, chatting. And all this activity was happening around the river. And I just thought, the thought occurred to me, you know, what if we were to become that river? What if we were to become a river? And what does that even mean? And then I came across the scripture that we shared in our meditation today from Psalms 46:4. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. What does that mean? I didn't have a clue. So I took it into meditation to see if I could find out, because it obviously was meaningful for this idea that I was germinating around the river and my experience sitting on the Hudson watching the world go by. So I thought about the city and how there are many famous rivers where cities have grown up around a river. Of course, there's the River Thames in London. There's the River Seine in Paris. There's the Mississippi. And then there are other rivers that are revered as holy, like the Ganges. What's a river to begin with? Well, Wikipedia says a river is a natural watercourse, usually fresh water, that's flowing towards an ocean, a lake, a sea, or another river. And then the smaller rivers we know as creeks or streams, brooks or rivulets. So to become the river, we need to flow back to our source. To be a city of God, to be a stream that makes the city of God glad, we have to be available so that infrastructures, if you will, can be built around us. So communities can be built around us. And that sounds like a really big task, but it's metaphysical. Rivers can do all kinds of things. They can smooth out, they can transport, they flow, they help us to navigate obstacles. They can be a source of support and nourishment. They feed wildlife and habitat. They promote growth. There's vegetation, that's me, vegetation growing around the side of the river. And they can be a source of pleasure for swimming or meditating or fishing. So how do we become the river? Well, the other place to go, in addition to going within, is to go back to the way shower, Jesus. And the idea that I get when I think about becoming a river is about selfless service, just being who you are, being in the flow, and affecting so many others around you. Being a resource for so many others around you without trying to fix anything or enable anyone. And again, Jesus modeled that for us. When he was in the desert on his self-appointed 40-day fasting and prayer retreat, he got hungry towards the end of it. But he didn't show off and try to satisfy his hunger by turning the stones into bread. He had the ability, but that's not how he used his gift. He didn't show off his talents and his gifts with a stunt by throwing himself off a ridge to see how many angels would show up to catch him, as the ego was tempting him with that scripture from the Old Testament, "For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways, lest you dash your foot against a stone." He could have, but that was not the best use of his gifts. He had nothing to prove like that. And he didn't try to satisfy his ego by declaring himself to be a big deal, which he was, but he wanted his works to speak for themselves. Then after that, he went out and he performed miracles. He did good deeds. He became the river that makes glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells, with selfless acts of service. And he didn't brag about it. He even told people, don't say anything, but they would go off and talk about it anyway. Could you imagine us in this day and age if Jesus was with us? I don't think he'd be tweeting and texting and on Facebook posting, "Wow, you should have seen how many baskets were left after I turned 5 loaves and 2 fish into supper for 5,000 people. It was awesome!" Exclamation, exclamation. And I don't think that's more than 140 characters. He wasn't motivated by fame, celebrity, or stardom. He just went about sharing his gifts, doing that which was his to do, with a focus on compassion, faith, and service. That's how you become a river. You show up, you make yourself available, you're in the flow, and others are blessed in your presence. And though Jesus briefly thought about it while suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane, he didn't take the easy way out there either. He didn't use his gifts to try to save himself from the inevitable death. And that was something that was not lost on the thief that was hanging on the cross next to him. Because he jeered him and he said, you saved others, but you can't save yourself. It's not that Jesus couldn't. That was not what he was about. Everything he did was selfless service, so that we could know our true identity as divine, so that we could show up and be who we're supposed to be. And we can help others to do that also when they're in our presence and we become the river, when we become a channel that's open, when we help others find their way around the bend and smooth out the boulders that threaten to block the path, the flow. So if you're feeling a little listless and lackluster about your life, I would encourage you to get in the flow and share your gifts. Wake up and share your gifts. Turn inwards first and connect with God, and then turn outwards and connect with others. Did you hear me? I'm just checking that you're still here. Turn inwards and connect with God, and then turn outwards and connect with others. Or we can go back, step back in time, and hear what H. Emily Cady said back in the 19th century. She said, "We grow by using for others the light and knowledge that we have. Count your blessings, find and use a practical application for each one, and seek new opportunities to be helpful." But it's almost the end of summer. We're running out of energy, I guess, because you're all sitting there like, tell me something I don't know. That happens to rivers too. Sometimes a river dries up and is only flowing at certain times of the year or after a rainstorm. Maybe we think that selfless acts of service are only applicable on special holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries. Or maybe we feel like a dried up river because we've let our prayer and meditation practice slide to the side. And we only really think about prayer when we've got some challenge or there's a need in our lives to be resolved. Don't make yourself wrong. Don't beat yourself up. You can start again. You can start where you are by reinstating your practice, by breathing, meditating, reading, because your life will dry up like a riverbed if you have no practice, if you have no spiritual sustenance other than what you get when you come into the chapel or you tune in on Sunday mornings. Or do we become a dried up riverbed when we think, I don't know, I don't really want to put myself out there because somebody will take advantage of my good nature. I'm just, so gullible sometimes that people take advantage of me. I need to rein in and take care of myself first. Or for others, we might have a fear that we don't have enough, and this one comes up a lot. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough space. But listen, if we don't limit ourselves in what we can receive, if we don't limit ourselves in what we can receive, then we won't limit ourselves in what we can share. You are the river. You go with the flow. Everything you need is right there. Selfishness blocks the channel, as does fear. I'm going to invite you to take a breath and affirm this with me. I'll say it first and then invite you to affirm it. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. Together, the way to my divinity is through my humanity. One more time. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. It's August, so back in March, I returned from a 40-day retreat in Bali. It was an adventure of a lifetime, one that I had been guided that I needed to take. In fact, the way it came to me in meditation was, you need to go to Bali to nurture and nourish your soul. And what you do next in ministry will come from that nurtured and nourished place. It was a fantastic idea. Sure, I'd love to go to Bali. Who's paying? It was a long, circuitous journey, and it took 2 years, but I did end up in Bali. And for the first 2 weeks of my 6-week stay, I was on retreat with another group, and we were doing a qigong and prayer retreat, going to different temples and so on. And then the plan was that for the next 4 weeks, I would find somewhere when I got there and spend 4 weeks in meditation and prayer, getting ready for what was next to nurture and nourish my soul. I had a preconceived idea of what that looked like because back in 2002, I had gone off on a 40-day silent retreat in Kansas. And that was, really going inward. It was about prayer and meditation and isolation, so I could become the river, so I could go back to the source. So I had in my mind that Bali would be the same thing, but without the silence. And I had one of those big boulders that I had to flow around when I realized that that's not at all what it was. So anyway, the first 2 weeks comes to an end, and I have nowhere to live. I have not found a place yet to stay. But it just so happened that before I left America to go off to Bali, a listener of Touching the Stillness got in touch with us for prayer. And through our correspondence, I found out that she wasn't just a listener in Indonesia, she was a listener in Bali. And she had invited me to come and stay with her when I got there. But remember, I had in my own head this idea of what a retreat would be like, so I very kindly said, you know, I appreciate your generosity, but I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for me to stay with you if I'm on retreat. I probably need to be somewhere by myself. But I would love to come and visit, and I would definitely love to come and pray with you. Because the prayer intention was about a health challenge that she had and some family issues that she was experiencing, any one of which would have been incredibly difficult on their own, and she was handling them with such strength and faith. So I get to Bali, 2 weeks are up, I have nowhere to live, so I get in touch and say, I would love to come and stay with you if the offer is still open, just until I find somewhere else. And she invited me to come if I wanted to stay for the entire 4 weeks. So I go to her home, it's a beautiful home, and she is more unwell than I realized. In fact, she has 3 or 4 autoimmune illnesses that leaves her debilitated each and every day. And each and every day that she wakes up, she has no idea how she's going to move through that day. So I was humbled that she would, in that condition, invite me to be a guest. And it was also weird to wake up in the morning and hear my voice echoing through her home, because she would be listening to podcasts of Touching the Stillness or my meditation, and she played them so they played throughout the whole house. So that was interesting. But I call her the Bali angel because the prayer intention that she sent to us was confidential, and so I want to honor her anonymity. So I call her the Bali angel because that is indeed what she is. This woman is so strong in her faith, even though her body was exhibiting a diagnosis and symptoms that would leave you seemingly weak. And she did everything she could to make my stay in her home, which was really only for 4 days before I moved on. She did everything in her stay to make it as nourishing and supportive as possible. She arranged for someone to come in and give me massages in the home. She arranged for others to come in and cook for me. She arranged for others to take me on tours around the island, take me to the beaches so I could explore other areas of the country. I had fresh fruit and fresh flowers waiting for me every day. I mean, she went out of her way. And it took every ounce of strength that she had to do that, to become the river. And one day I said to her, that's so generous of you, but perhaps you should put your energy into, you know, your self-care, your health care. I'll be fine. I just needed somewhere to sleep. This will be fine. And she said, no, Reverend Paulette, I have to do this. It feels like I'm paying it forward. If I can do this to help and support you, nurture and nourish your soul, then when you go back to the States and you're on the radio, supporting and encouraging all those listeners that you have, I feel that I have done something, I've made a contribution regardless of what's going on with me. That's how you become the river. You take the attention off yourself and you selflessly serve. So what can you do? You can get involved. Get involved with life. And let that involvement begin with prayer, especially if you have no idea what it is you can give or offer, or how you can serve, or how you can be that channel that blesses just by being yourself and sharing what you already have. So I came back from Bali and was discombobulated for several weeks and wondering, what's this big deal that's supposed to happen when I get back? Because I'm now nurtured and nourished. What's next? And nothing seemed to be coming. I just seemed to be moving into deeper confusion. So I did what I'm inviting you to do. I went into prayer. How can I use my gifts and talents in other ways? How can I be a source of support and selfless service? And I was guided to do something I have never done before, but blessed me so deeply. In June, I dedicated a 12-hour period to prayer and fasting for all my Touch in the Stillness listeners. So from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, I was in prayer and meditation, and I had invited them to email or send in their prayer intentions if they had something specific that I could hold for them for that time. It was an amazing experience, and there's nothing in it for me, seemingly, but I got so much from just turning within and using that space for them. And then after that, I was guided to do shorter periods, maybe 6 or 4 hours for different individuals as I was prompted. That was my gift. What's yours? You might be a painter or a carpenter or have handyman skills that you can help a household that's a neighbor or a single household, a single parent who needs help. Or you can use those skills to help build homes for Habitat. Perhaps you can, unlike me, you're good with numbers. Then you can become a treasurer, volunteer your time in a not-for-profit organization. They would love to have you. I know it's not one of the things I love to do in my ministry, is crunch those numbers, right, Patricia? And so you might be able to help someone do something like that they struggle with. Just be the river, show up for them. Or maybe you're a good listener, so you can go and volunteer and sit with someone in a retirement home or in hospice and just be a listening ear. It doesn't have to be anything huge. You just have to be available. Be the river without asking or expecting anything back in return. And all the while, you'll be on your journey back to the source. You can be a source of inspiration and ideas. You can smooth out the rough places for another. You can let someone discover a sense of peace just by being in your presence. You can be a resource that feeds others, that supports the renewal process. You can be a channel of wisdom, a stream of positive consciousness. I'm going to close with this quote that's attributed to Mother Teresa. And I invite you to take it into your heart. She says, "Go out into the world today and love the people you meet. Let your presence light new light in the heart of others." Go out into the world today and love the people you meet. Let your presence light new light into the heart of others. So let's use this affirmation again. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. Take a deep breath. Exhale. And maybe nothing occurs to you right now, but as you meander home, or you're grilling up the barbecue, starting up the barbecue for your grill, or you're about your activities, maybe something will come to mind. So let's affirm this together. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. I don't believe you because you sound like you're falling asleep with this truth. Sit upright. Take a deep breath. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. One more time. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. One more time. The way to my divinity is through my humanity. What can you do today to become the river? I'll leave that with you. Namaste.